How they'll make us eat the bugs. Um, y'all know I already talked a little bit about this, but this article goes a little bit more into it. Um, y'all know I believe that they're using the bird flu to actually. I think it was created in a lab, and they're releasing it. They're starting to slowly release it out here to make us get rid of beef and chicken. So we have to rely on eating this ultra processed bugs and the lab made meat and stuff like that. They know by choice we're not going to eat these things. And even the studies that I went over before show that it's actually more harmful than eating real meat and stuff. But they don't care. They're going to continue to push this agenda as part of their depopulation plan, and they're using the bird flu to get rid of dairy, beef, and chicken. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. All right, so let's talk about this news. Now, this comes from EricPetersSatos.com. I think I pronounced that right. And Eric reports that, well, now we know how they're going to get us to eat the bugs, and they hope take the drugs. They are going to use the excuse of containing the bird flu to kill the birds, chickens, and cattle too. And this way, they'll have succeeded in reducing the quote emissions of carbon dioxide emanating from the animals we eat without having to convince us to stop eating meat. There's just won't be any to eat. Not for us, that is. The elite as agglutinators of power who like to use it to control others, like to think of themselves, will have all they can eat. Just the same as they have and will continue to have private jets and 10,000 square foot homes and thousands of gallons of liquid hydrocarbon fuels on hand to power their homes and keep their meat cool in the Viking fridges. They've got the Viking fridges they've got that most of us can't afford, and cook their meat on gas ranges they've decided we're not going to be allowed to have. Remember that? I told you Biden is regulating us out of existence. He don't want us to have gas stoves. They're pushing all these so-called carbon initiatives that are actually hurting people. But evil can be egregious, or at least devilishly clever. I'm sorry, ingenious. I said egregious. Ingenious, or at least devilishly clever. It's an important distinction. The ingenious invent things that change things for the better. Nikola Tesla is an example of an ingenious man. Elon Musk is an example of a clever man. He knows how to game the system using Tesla's name. Tesla understood alternating current and developed practical uses for it that included literally lighting up the world. The next clever thing is the same old thing again, another so-called pandemic, only this time one that requires killing off poultry flocks and cattle herds rather than staying 6 feet apart and wearing masks to stop the spread. Though no doubt those things will be back again too. And notice now there's a story that's out that's talking about how bad it is in Michigan. How Michigan bird flu is showing up more in the state of Michigan than any other state, and we know that who runs that state. Whitmore, Governor Whitmore, the lock 'em down Whitmore. She had more lockdown procedures and stuff like that than any other state. And of course it makes sense for them to release it in her state first, I believe. But they are necessary props for the success of the theater. They will be testing so as to generate cases, which will be used to impose masking, all the rest of it again. And of course, it's right on time for the 2024 election. I don't think any of this is a coincidence. Just in time for the almost here selection again. But the pending pandemic, They said selection. I wonder if they mean election, which I was just alluding to. But anyway, this it's not really a great written article. I apologize. I see a lot of typos and stuff like that here, but the information in it is good. Um, but the pending pandemic already here, actually, the spread having already started, will serve the additional purpose that's been stymied thus far of getting most of us to stop eating meat and start eating the bugs. The elite have tried to get us to eat them voluntarily. That hasn't been working. They've tried guilting us to eat them, telling us that eating meat results in emissions, of a piece with the tactics they've been using successfully to drive the car out of the showroom in favor of the device. But it has been much harder to get people to give up chicken and beef and milk and cheese and everything else that's made of using milk. People like eating meat, and most do not like the idea of giving it up for a plate of crickets or a smoothie made of liquefied maggots. I mean, it's just disgusting. There's also the problem of people who do not need stores to get meat or milk or eggs. These people are a big problem for the elites because they are far less controllable. People who are not starving being harder to control. Again, I apologize. This is not written very well. The bird flu, cowpox, or whatever they'll eventually decide to call it, will solve that problem by turning it into a public health problem. Of a piece with Way last time, small businesses were put out of business so that big businesses that were allowed to stay open, so as to agglutinate into the coffers of big businesses the money that had kept small businesses open, and to drive independent small business owners into dependent employees of the big business, many of whom ended up having to go to work for after their small businesses were put out of business. Because think about who made record profits during the pandemic. Companies like Walmart, Amazon, and things like that, but the small businesses were destroyed. The elites will no longer have to rely on no long selling claptrap about the climate changing because cows are farting. They will instead say people are dying or going to if we, meaning they, don't do something to stop the spread again. And the scary part, they just might actually die this time. You have probably heard them say so. The new pandemic, they tell us, will be much worse than the last one, in which case it might actually be a pandemic and people would be scared, and scared people are much easier to control, as H.L. Mencken observed more than a century ago. Much more receptive too to a cricket cracker slathered with maggot spread, especially when that's all there is left to eat. And so I definitely agree with this article, and even though it's poorly written, I'm not trying to be hard on the author. It's just a little difficult to read, but I understand the sentiment, and I agree with the sentiment that they're going to use this pandemic to make us to get rid of our chickens and our beef, so we have to rely on the globalist bugs. But let me know what y'all think about this. Are y'all going to eat these bugs? Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.